T-minus 17 seconds and counting. 15, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Go for main engine start. Main engine start. 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the space station, paving the way for future missions beyond.
Hi everybody, welcome to another conversation sheltered in place. I hope this conversation finds everybody safe and healthy and navigating well through this current crisis. Initially, we started out these conversations to help people navigate the COVID-19 crisis and to get through it stronger and more unified than ever. But I think we need to expand that to help people navigate and get through 2020 and to get through more unified and stronger than ever, because we're being hit with a number of crises around the world, and I think it's a pretty strong indicator that we are in the midst of the great transition. We humanity, has been given the opportunity and the motivation, I think, to rise above our past differences, to rise above our challenges and problems, and to see them for what they really are, and to come together and to solve them. I'm really excited that we have a tremendous guest today, and she, Her Highness, Her Excellency, she's going to be mad at me, Dr. Rosalía Arteaga Serrano is the former president and former vice president of Ecuador. She is a member of the Encyclopedia Britannica Publishing Council, a member of the World Academy of Arts and Sciences. She is a member of the board of directors of the Library of Alexandria in Egypt, and an honorary member of the Royal Academy of Doctors of Europe, and on the board of directors of many other organizations. She's also an advisor on education to the China America Commercial Association of California, and she has received numerous awards recognizing her work to help build a better future for all, and for her work promoting education and the care of the environment. She's a critically acclaimed author who has published poetry, short stories, and children's literature. She's currently the CEO of the Fidel Foundation, an organization that strengthens democracy and governance by promoting capacity building, education, and training development for young leaders with a focus on ecological awareness and sustainable development throughout Latin America. So without further ado, I want to introduce everybody to Madam President. Hi, sorry about that. What did I say? I don't even remember. It should be her.
You must call me Rosalía, please. I'm so excited about this conversation. It's the first time that I feel so close to a space trip on the clouds or something like that. But I'm also very excited about the issue to have a public talk with an astronaut, a very famous astronaut. And thank you for the opportunity.
Well, it's my honor. It's my honor to speak to the first woman president of Ecuador and the first woman vice president. And I was so impressed when we met. We met back in January.
Yes, and that was
wonderful. It was wonderful to spend time with you there, and I remember fondly our conversations that we had, and I know that everybody would benefit greatly from hearing your wisdom and hearing your perspective on what we're going through right now, we being humanity in the world. So maybe to start off, can you tell us a little bit about how things are going in Ecuador? I know that initially things were really bad back in April with COVID-19, but how has Ecuador coped with the pandemic, and how do you see the future, and how do you see the path coming out of this?
Well, thanks again for the opportunity. I think it is good to see what's happening now, and the idea is what could happen in the future. For now, I can say that Ecuador, this country in the middle of the world, was attacked by COVID-19. I was in a very tragic way, especially in the big port of Ecuador. The name of the port is Guayaquil. I live personally. I live in the capital in Quito, but in Guayaquil it started the pandemic very strong. Lots of people contagious, and also a lot of people dying. We don't know exactly the statistics because at that time the government cannot count how many people were contagious because we didn't have the proof trying to know exactly the numbers. And I think it happens in most of the country. No, I don't think any country had the complete panorama of what's happening with the numbers. But in any case, we had problems with hospitals. Hospitals doesn't cannot accept all the people that were trying to get into the hospital. People dying even on the streets. Now it's more controlled. Now people is starting to do like a kind of new normal life, new normal, because it's not the same that in the past everybody has to use the mask to be very careful about washing hands and that. But in a country like in Ecuador or most in Latin America, we had a lot of people that survived economically, living on the streets, on trying to sell things on the streets, and it's very hard to maintain people with all the care that you want to. We have now in Latin America other countries that probably are in worse situation in number of people that are dying or cannot be attended in hospitals. Peru is having a very bad time. Also Brazil, Mexico, most of the countries. I think the only one that is in better position, in better condition is Costa Rica in Central America. They control it in the best way, what's happening with the pandemic. But the situation is really bad in Latin America.
I want to welcome everybody who's joining. We're hearing comments that the audio is maybe not great, and if
yes, it's like a noise.
So if you guys can tell me whose audio is it, both of the audio or mine? So just let us know where that's from, because if it's on my end, I might be able to do some things to fix it. So I know that Ecuador was struggling economically before the virus hit. And where do you see the effects to the economy because of this? What type of things are exacerbating the economy, and do you see a road out of that?
Well, before the virus the pandemic we had a really bad situation. It has to be with the previous government. We had kind of socialistic government, similar to Chavez in Venezuela, and the government wasted all the money and acquired a lot of debt, especially with China. Our budget depends a lot on the price of oil because we export oil. We also export other things like bananas or shrimps or cocoa, wonderful chocolates and other things. But the most of the budget, it depends on the price of oil. In like a decade before or 8 years before, the price of oil were very high, like $100 per barrel. And in this previous month, in May, in April, the price of oil go down in a very dramatic way, even costing less than $1 per barrel. Imagine what happens with a country like Ecuador, depending on oil prices, but also problems with corruption, problems with how the government expanded and had a big bureaucracy. All there was previous the pandemic. And we also have some social stress, especially in October last year, with people, with violence on the streets. That it was very unusual in Ecuador because Ecuador had some troubles, but not violence on the streets. But it helped to create this environment not good for economics, for investors, and that. And then it came the COVID-19. And after that, we had also the tube to conduct the oil was broken, 3 tubes. And we have to stop the production of oil. And 3 days ago, it started an eruption of a volcano.
Yeah.
I don't know what else can I add.
It's because it's 2020.
Yeah, it is terrible to remember. Probably in the future we will say 2020. My God, it has been the worst year, maybe for humanity also. But in other issues, we feel a lot of solidarity between people, neighborhoods organizing, big companies trying to help with food, with medical supplies. And it's good to feel, because we don't have to talk only about bad things, but also good things, and how we can use this big pause, this big transition time to improve the quality of human beings that we are. And probably this pandemic puts out the worst and the better of the humanity. The worst because you feel what's happening, even with corruption in these times, that it's unbelievable. And also the good face that is concerned about the environment, how it improves the quality of air, and also the solidarity of the people. That's the panoramic view that I can feel about what's happening in my country and also in other countries, because we are in touch with different places through the use of these tools that we have now, digital tools. Probably if the pandemic was not going on, we didn't have this conversation using these tools. Yes.
So I think one of the things that make this an opportunity is the fact that for the first time, maybe in human history, every single person on the planet is obviously and undeniably being affected by an existential threat. So there's not a single person on the planet that's not affected in one way or another by COVID-19. And so, the saying "we're all in this together" is obviously not a cliche. We really are all in this together. We're all on the same boat. We're all riding through the universe together on the spaceship that we call Earth, and it's undeniable.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that humanity hasn't faced other existential threats. I mean, we're facing other existential threats right now, but none as obvious as this. None as undeniable as this. And I think we have an opportunity to come out better and stronger and more unified than ever. Can you speak maybe a little bit to that? You talked about maybe the silver lining, or you talked about the good that you see that could come out of this. How do we get a benefit for the price that we're already paying when we come out? What kind of world do we want to come out and see?
Yeah, it is easy to dream, but the good thing is to dream having the feet under the floor. Then we can prepare this, and we can in certain way model it in the way that we can dream. The idea is to have this digital tool, the possibility to do a lot of things online. They are in our lives more than ever, and they will stay. They will stay forever, I think. Then we have to think about how will be the educational situation. For example, that is a field that I used to work a lot, and how it is impacting in schools, high schools, even universities. In terms of the possibility to use these tools, it's fantastic. But in the other side, you can see that it's not available for everybody. In my country, for example, it's not only that you don't have the computers, you don't have the instruments, but it's also about connection, and also about how prepared are the teachers to teach with these digital tools. I have to confess that in this time that we have to make like a stop, I decided to go again to university to learn how to teach online, because we have an institute for young leaders, and we are in the past it was like a blended situation. Some is presential, some is online, especially homeworks and things like that, and people had to read some books and lectures. But the most beautiful was exactly the presential, when we share weekends with the students, like 50 students learning about ethics, about how to present projects and that. And now we have to do all online. We are starting at the end of June this project, and we have to learn. And I make an alliance with a university in Spain, UNIR University, and 20 of us decided to go again to university and to learn how to teach. And it is an opportunity, fantastic. I saw, because we had some experiences with teachers. We used to have them in a classroom in presential, and we were starting one of these classes. But suddenly it came the coronavirus and the quarantine, and everybody's at home. And we found that we had the teacher more connected than when they were in presence. Then it was an opportunity, and we improved the quality and the impact on the teachers. But it's not for everybody. A lot of people doesn't have the tools, doesn't have the connectivity, and it's a big problem, especially for young kids, for teenagers, in poor families, in rural areas, or in really poor situation. But in terms of how to build the new world, we have to think about it in foresight, trying to foresight. What's it better? We learned that if we stop, the world feels better, like the environment feels better if we stop the humanity. And you know it more than anybody, because you had the opportunity to see the Earth, this blue planet, from outside. Then you feel how the environment is important. Then we know that, and it's a lesson. The other lesson is how to improve education, how to arrive to different places, how to use these tools, these digital things that in the past we didn't pay a lot of attention. Solidarity is important. And also, I think that big companies have to think a lot about to not increase the level of prices and the winners. They have to think about that they cannot be healthy or wealthy in a world that is poor. And if you are surrounded for people that doesn't have anything to eat, anything to use, they don't have access to education, to medicine. It is impossible.
Right.
Then I think all these have to be in probably in events, in talks, in seminars. We have to talk a lot more about solidarity and how to improve quality of life, not for few people, but for everybody.
Yeah. So you brought up a really, really good point. I want to discuss that. I want to discuss the environment, I guess the contrast between helping the environment, lifting the poor out of poverty, and increasing the bottom line of corporations. So basically the economy. And so you brought up a really, really good point in that they're not mutually exclusive. We can lift the poor out of poverty. We can help the environment, and we can have healthy businesses. And maybe let me just pop this up. Here's a question from Alicia. How can Ecuador begin its activities after the pandemic with the worst economy in Ecuador's history? And so maybe that would be a good starting point for this conversation about how things are not mutually exclusive. We think they are, but they're not mutually exclusive. We can do it all.
Yeah, it is true, and we have to learn a lot because it is something that we never expected. Probably in the past we had some kind of pandemics, but they were not so globalized. It's also because we are more communicated. Since the beginning, when the first satellite was up and it communicates, the world changed a lot. In the past, you can feel that the sickness, the problem was in other place, not close to you, but now you feel that everybody is closer, and you see what's happening in Spain, in Italy, what's happening in Ecuador, what's happening now in India that is in a really bad condition. Then we have to create these links between people. And I am sure that probably not in so immediate future, but in the next future, we are going to find ways. We are going to be more propositive, thinking how we can do things together, because it's not sustainable to do things like we have been doing before the pandemic. With the pandemic, it is like a stop, and I hope it could serve, and it could. That's my dream. I'm not sure that it could happen, but I dream in terms of a better world, and these possibilities of working together. These opportunities that we have now, for example, to be connected and to share some ideas, and maybe to find possibilities. I never imagined, for example, that I received some help in food, paying lunch for disadvantaged families from Azerbaijan, from Baku, because I had some contacts there, and they paid through credit card, and I make the link between the people that need and the chain Kentucky Fried Chicken or whatever, to do that kind of things. And I feel that, okay, we are linking people that would never have been in touch without these bad situations that we have, and also using the technological tools that we have now. Yeah, I think it is a great opportunity. I was part during the past month of an initiative that initiates in Spain the idea to write a book about how we feel these days, and it was published in a book called it's only in Spanish, unfortunately for now, call it the Great Pause, that we stop for a moment and what we feel about it. And it is creating some expectation about how we feel it and how we manage it, because it has to be a lot. And of course, you can teach us, and maybe I will ask you, when you were out of the space, when you were in your crib, how you manage to be alone, how to manage psychologically, because most of us had, for the first time, for me it was my first time, first month, I stayed the complete month totally alone, because I was in Mexico at the beginning of March, and I didn't want to put in risk my family. It was not because the government says you must be at home, but I decided to be completely isolated. How I handle it? I discovered that I was really bad cooking, but I learned a little bit. I discovered that I love to do some gardening, because I have a small garden here, and I think it was it saves me, because I had the opportunity to be in contact with the soil, with the plants, and taking care of it, and putting some water on the plants, and taking the leaves and things like that. But it was my way to stay sane,
Yeah.
not stay with the installation. And maybe you can tell us what you do for being sane in terms of isolation.
Yeah, in space, on the space station, one of the things we do is we make use of all the technology we can. And so we use every tool that we can to be in touch with our loved ones, with our family, with our friends. And we have better technology now than we did when I was on the space station. As far, we're having this conversation right now through this technology. And so we want to use every tool that we have to stay connected with our loved ones and our friends and those people that support us. And in addition to that, I think one of the big things that gets you through the isolation is a sense of mission. That you have a mission to do, a mission to accomplish. And if you're locked in your house and you don't feel like you have a mission, then just like you explained, you can have a mission of self-improvement. You could have a mission to not let this be a waste of your time, to use this opportunity to learn something, to explore something, to learn a new skill, whatever it is. And that becomes your mission. Because if you have a mission, then you have a focus. And when you have a focus, you're not succumbing to boredom. You're not succumbing to depression. Or you have a purpose. And I think it's really important. Humans need a purpose. Humans need a mission, and they need to be connected. And so the two things are find your mission and stay connected any way you can, even if you're not able to do that physically. But you have been a champion of the poor. You have been a champion of our environment, especially in the Amazon, the lungs of our planet. And so, I think we have seen through this pandemic that when we give the planet a little break, when we just back off just a little bit, it reacts very, very positively. And I think, we talked about the counterplay between the poor and the environment and corporations and making profits. And I think a lot of times what gives the appearance that they're mutually exclusive is a short-term focus. If we're only concentrating on the next shareholder report, the next election cycle, or whatever it might be, we lose the fact that in the long term, things can make a lot of sense that may not make sense in the short term. And so things that give us a benefit in the short term, a lot of times can be really, really hurting us in the long term. And so, if we talk about climate change, for instance, the biggest victim of climate change is going to be the economy.
Yeah.
In the long term, that is going to be the biggest victim. And so, if we start thinking in terms of more thinking multi-generational, I think a lot of things become clear. I know that we've had conversations before about taking a long-term view. Can you speak a little bit about that and how you see that affecting the economy?
Well, first, I want to go back to what you said about a mission, a vision, because it's so important. And when you find that you have a mission, it's easier. How you can put this kind of vision and mission in people that is almost starving is quite a challenge, because the vision or the mission is survive.
Right.
And people say that, for example, in Latin America, we are going to have a wave of hunger. Imagine that in education, we are going to be back 10 years in the world, but probably in Latin America, 20 or 30 years going back. And for women, it is even more terrible, because in some families, they are deciding who is going to the school, and they prefer the boy, and the girl stays at home. It is going back to decades that we thought that they were in the past, that they couldn't be in the future. But in other hands, in terms of trying to have an optimistic view, I feel a lot of confidence in human mankind. How the science can help to stop these barriers and to link in a way that the human, the people from the wealthy countries and the people from the non-wealthy countries can do things together. I am feeling, because I'm in a chat, for example, with people that we had been the opportunity to stay in a Google campus, and I participate in a chat, not saying anything because I'm not a scientist, I'm only an observer, but I feel that the answers to this pandemic and the situation of the world, they have to be with a multitasking group. It's not only about people from medicine field, but people from anthropology, from education, from astronaut, from the space knowledge. I think we have to create a multitasking group to have different views to this problem. Not only the pandemic, the medical problem, but the health problem, but also about economy. And I think the brightest people in the world has to think about it, to create a way how to surpass this situation. It's not going to be easy. But if after the First World War, the Second World War, It seems that, for example, Europe was destroyed, Japan was destroyed, but what happens after? The ashes of the destroyed the situation, from that ashes, people merge it, and
Right.
the ideas merge it. Then we must see that like a mission. And I like a lot what you say about having this mission in a personal situation, like saying, okay, I'm in this situation, I have to go through this, but also like collectivities, like nations, like communities. I think also a lot in the role of local authorities, not only the big authorities of a nation, like United States, for example, or like China, or a small country like Ecuador, but we have to think about the local. And I was telling even to some authorities here in Ecuador, why you are not thinking, because some people is already thinking about health supplies, food, and that. But other people, other local authorities, they have to think about how to improve economy, local economy. Because if you add the local economies, you can have a national economy wealthy and better than if you think only in the big panorama and say, no, it's a big problem. I remember when I read something about Winston Churchill during the war, and he had such amount of troubles coming to him, and he used to say at that time, one hell at a time, only one. I have to attack this and then go to another. Of course, sometimes, and I'm a woman, and we used to use the multitasking, no, the simultaneously
Yeah.
thinking, and it's good to in certain moments, but one hell at a time, trying to solve one problem at a time. And I think economy, it has to be attacked in a way that you can have some solutions in local areas, local areas. If you think in the big problem, probably you are going to be like paralyzed, not impossibility to act. But if you see the small situation and you can handle it, and you can have good person working on it, probably it's an opportunity.
Yeah. So I think you brought up a really, really good point. You know, the title of this conversation is Conversations Sheltered in Place, right? And what, you know, the second part of that, sheltered in place, you know, I have to acknowledge my gratitude for the fact that I have a shelter. I have a
Me
place.
too. Yes.
I have a place where I can avoid the pandemic. I could stay isolated. But as you so correctly brought out, the poor don't. The poor are on the streets. They're trying to eke out an existence. There's hunger involved and everything else. And when you're trying to deal with a worldwide pandemic, one of the ways, one of the things that stop us from being able to achieve that is the fact that there's poor, that we have allowed as a species a segment of our population to live below the poverty line, to live in destitute poverty, and this should be perfect evidence that if we help the poor, we're not just helping the people who happen to be poor, we're helping everyone. And so when other crises come, when other pandemics come, we'll be able to deal with them better because we don't have people who can't shelter in place, for instance. We don't have people that can't take precautions. A big chunk of the world doesn't even have clean water to wash their hands with, and they don't have. And if they have clean water, they probably don't have soap. And so there's something as simple as washing your hands we tend to take for granted. And I think this is right in line with trying to take this big picture long-term perspective where things start to make sense.
Yeah, the situation that you describe is totally real, because we are very fortunate people to have a shelter, to have water and soap, and if we can follow the instructions, we can follow what the authority says or the scientist says that we have to do to fight this pandemic, or at least to avoid it in the first moment. But because probably in the future, all of us, we are going to be contaminated. Probably is that, and it's going to be a seasonal sickness every year. I am looking forward about a vaccine, like many people is doing, but we know that it has to take a time, and also some kind of medicines. But and probably we cannot go inside this because this is not our field of expertise. But we can do some other things with the poor people, and how to combine the ideas of some people with the reality in other hands. I think we have to work a lot on it. For example, I was telling Ministry of Education of Ecuador, yes, now we know that the students cannot go to school, but why not do something in preparing when they go back to school? We have to have in any school places to wash hands. Exactly. Some things that seems to be small. And when I saw the big lines of people trying to get some food, not only in Ecuador, but in the United States. And I was talking some days before with some people from Spain, and they say in Barcelona, we had lots of people in big lines trying to get some food because they are starving. Then it has to be a new conception of a new world. We cannot go into this for more and more time. I think it is a big challenge for all humanity. But as I said before, we have to think local and act in a global way. The word that I love to use is local, like the combination of global and local. And it is a tool, I think, better than only thinking in global, because global is so big and it's so distant from us, and it's so different from us. But the local is, of course, what we feel, our neighbor, our family, the people that we care more for them. And the global, because we use the tools like these digital tools or the medicines. It's a discovery in Israel, in China, or United States. It's going to serve and to be utilized in different countries. And I am thinking that the vaccine has to be for free. Has to be for free, this vaccine at least, because I don't think the big laboratories have to feel that they are going to make a big profit. No profits on it, please. No profits. We need to have this for free. And of course, it takes some money to prepare that, but the big countries has to pay for it. But for the small countries, for the non-wealthy countries, we need it for free. And of course, the governments in each country have to provide how to do it inside, how to build the groups that are going to vaccine and that. But I think so. Probably it's a little idealistic, but if we don't act in this way, we are not going to have a solution. I'm concerned about what's happening with other vaccines, because some sickness they had been fighted in some years ago in a very good way, like I don't know how to say sarampion in English, or polio and other sickness. But now, because of the big crisis, the governments are neglecting this kind of vaccines, and it's going to be even worse, because we are going to have not only coronavirus but other pandemics going on forward. If there is one case of one sickness in the world, the risk is for all the world, not only for that country, not only for that person. Then we have to act global, but think in a local way.
Yeah, I mean, a vaccine is a perfect example that we're all in this together, because vaccines don't work unless a critical number of people get vaccinated. And so, if we're ever fighting a pandemic, we have to make sure that we get the vaccine out to as many people as possible, regardless of where they are or whether they can afford it or not. And again, that's not just helping the people that get the vaccine; it's helping us as a species. And again, I think this is a difference between short-term thinking and long-term thinking, because, from an economic point of view, going back to the poor and all the disadvantage that people that live in poverty have, if, a corporation comes in and they exploit the poor for a short-term profit, that might work for them. Their balance sheet might look good for a little bit. Their shareholder report might look good for a little bit, but in the long term, it's going to crush them because those very same people that are exploiting could become customers, and they could, if they get lifted out of poverty. As opposed to squashing them, if we lift them out of poverty, then in the long run it's going to be better, and it's the same from a biological point of view when we talk about pandemics as well. So.
Yeah, if you don't have customers, you are not going to have profit. That
Right.
is so realistic, and we have to learn about what happens in other circumstances in different places of the world. I have some friends. I remember what a member of the parliament in Brazil says, because he has the theory that every person that was born in any country of the world has to have like a kind of pension of salary.
Yeah.
And people say, how we can do it? It's impossible to do. But he says, when it's a big crisis with big companies, don't the state of the government pay to the companies to make again the things going on, and they after that they have profits? Why we cannot pay the people just to live, to have a decent kind of life? Maybe we have to think about this kind of crazy ideas. Probably they are crazy in certain way, but probably they are more realistic in other ways. Because if you have all the people having money, they have money, they have pensions, they have salaries because you live, that you are alive. That's the theory of Suplicy, and it's so interesting, because if you have money, if you are going to spend it, you are not going to keep it and to have it in a secret place. No, you are going to spend it, and if you spend it, you move the economy. That's a theory that could be complementary with the capitalism, and to make studies. Maybe the economists, the big economists, the Nobel laureates can think about how it can work. If you are born, you have a pension. Then maybe if you have a pension, you are a customer. Then you are going to buy, and the companies are going to make some profit. Maybe the profits has to be not so big like they were in the past. It's impossible to think about it because it's not sustainable. I feel when you go to a supermarket or you go to a restaurant and you feel that they are almost stealing your money, because it's so expensive to say, why? It doesn't have to be like that. They have to have some profit, but not the big profit that put the other in risk to never come again.
Right.
If you feel that you are comfortable, that you are paying something that it's possible for you, then you are going to come back. And it's going to be more profit for the restaurant or the supermarket or the store or whatever you think about.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of discussion about that, universal basic income and things like that. And the big argument against it is, well, who's going to pay for it? Where is the money going to come from? But one of the places that the money could come from is to get rid of all the bloated bureaucracy that is presently around some of the social programs. Like, I'm just speaking in terms of the United States right now, but if you look at welfare in the United States and the amount of money that goes simply to the administration of the programs through the bloated bureaucracy, I mean, I'm sure that
and it grows and grows and grows, and you never know where is the money of the government.
Right. If you got rid of that bureaucracy and used the money that you were paying the bureaucrats to manage those programs and to make sure that people weren't cheating or anything else, you could probably pay for a program like that. So I think I think what you're getting at is that we need to really start thinking outside of the box. And the way things have always been are not the way they have to be. I think what's really clear, I think it was clear before this, but I think what this is really making it clear to more people is that the status quo is not working. At least it's not working for everyone. Until the status quo is working for everyone, we're not going to solve the challenges we face. We're not going to solve the problems we face. We really need to design a world where everyone has the opportunity to contribute to society. That's the other thing, is that we have about 7.7 billion creative problem-solving minds on this planet, but most of them, or a big chunk of them, are not connected to the global conversation. And so we're not connected to the potential solutions they can bring and everything else. And, there might be somebody in some part of the world that would invent the cure for coronavirus, but they're not. But right now, potentially, they're living in poverty. They're not connected to the internet. They don't, they're just worrying about where their next meal is coming from. And so, it really helps us all to think of everybody. So,
yeah, and I'm sure that everybody has to have an opportunity. When we talk about gender issues, for example, when we were fighting for the rights of women, and we are still fighting. Yesterday, I have a talk with the Organization of American States. They were in Washington, and I had the opportunity to talk because they are trying to find ways to be more. That it has to be more equilibrium and opportunities for men and women to be part of the big judiciary system in the Americas. And they asked me to do some kind of speech for the council. And I was telling, well, when you think in women of my generation, we were very aware about how was the fight. Because I remember when I went to the university first day studying law, and the professor that was a big economic professor, he says, "What are you doing here? Only forget a husband, you can stay at the door of the university." He says it to us. Yeah. I imagine that some professor, if some professor says something like that, now he will be in jail probably or out of university. In our situation, and I'm talking about almost 40 years ago, we had to say, okay, we are going to demonstrate that we are the better, and we were the better students. But probably new generation, they are not a lot aware of what happens in the past. But of course, the fight is continuously going on to find places in soccer, football, to find places in academia and in other places. But the only thing that and it's because of your previous talk, is about opportunities. The only thing that people need is equal opportunities. Because if you don't have this possibility to grow up, to have a good quality of life, I was thinking, because you and me, we believe in democracy, but the big cancers, talking about sickness, the big cancers, the big virus against democracy are poverty and corruption. Two things, big things. And we have to fight against poverty, because people have to have equal opportunities, and we have to fight against corruption, because corruption erodes not only the budget, diminish the budget, but also the faith, the faith that you have in how has to be the conductor of a group. It could be the president of the republic, or it could be the judge, or it could be the mayor of the councilwoman or the councilman. It could be anybody, but you have to trust. If you feel that you cannot trust to your president, to your judge, to your member of the parliament, then it creates a kind of cancer for democracy. And I think that's the big risk in the world today, because a lot of people is saying, okay, if democracy means that the level of poverty increases and the level of corruption increases, what we have to trust in democracy? We can trust in any populist, in any communist, in any people that is making a very nice speech, and that's all. Yeah. Then we have to find a way, and maybe this big pulse, this pandemic, creates an opportunity to think about all these situations and to find ways, a common ways for humanity.
Yeah. So poverty and corruption. So I mean, poverty is not going to go away. I hear a lot of people say, we've always had the poor, we always will have the poor. That's the type of mentality that will prevent us from solving the issue, because I think what the SAFE program proves is that anything is possible, that we can accomplish anything, and we will not solve the issue of poverty. We will not lift the entire population of the world out of poverty until we make that a basic human right. It's a basic human right to live at a level above poverty. And corruption, corruption's probably been around since the first transaction. And we've tried to fight corruption head on too, and haven't been very successful. But I think there's a way that we can make corruption obsolete. We make it obsolete by requiring transparency and openness, and we do that with our wallets and our pocketbooks. If we demand of the companies that we buy goods and services from that they maintain a certain level of transparency and openness before we'll do business with them, and we have the technology now to do that, to have open, transparent transactions and smart contracts and everything else. And we're able to see how the sausage is being made, and things are not don't require being in secret to be successful anymore. I think we can make a big change and nudge the trajectory. So can I change topics just for a second?
Yes.
And I just thought of this, and I wish I thought of this before, because I would have found the picture and showed it to you. But I have a picture of the Galapagos Islands that I took from the space station that is really, really cool. And the reason why it was cool is because each of the islands had its own little cloud over the top of it, and the wind was blowing all in the same direction across all the islands. And what the picture looked like, it looked like all the Galapagos Islands were having a race. And they were all racing each other across the Pacific and leaving this trail of smoke behind, which was the clouds. And it was just
wonderful.
Such an interesting picture. And I know you promised that you were gonna take me to the Galapagos Islands, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah, and I think you had the privilege to see from the space, because we are very proud about our Galapagos Island, because it's like a natural laboratory that inspired Darwin for the theory of evolution, but also inspire a lot of people about good things, how to prevent the risks of contamination in Galapagos, talking about environmental issues, how to protect and to maintain the fauna and the vegetables there. It is fantastic. I have a good friend that is the captain of a boat there. This boat is from National Geographic, the boat that is going around. Now he's stuck there in his boat.
Yeah.
He cannot go to the land, to the city, and he has to maintain his all his crew there in the sea. And it's the third month but of course we can make an arrangement, and it was an opportunity because it was supposed that this September it's going to be a cruise from the Royal Academy of Europe, of Doctors of Europe, but now it has to change, and maybe next year you can be included in that group and do Galapagos, because it's fantastic. If you get there. I remember my first time. I was 17. I was going to graduate from high school, and we went in a very old boat, and it was in really bad circumstances. But we get in love with the archipelago, and I'm sure that you will get in love. You are already, because you saw it from the space, and you promised to send me these pictures.
Okay, all right, I will. It's the pictures of the islands racing across the water. So.
Yes, please. It will be great.
So, Madam President, do you have any words of advice for folks that are dealing with this crisis, and any words of hope for how things might look on the other side?
Well, we talk a little bit about some ideas. Probably advice is not. I'm not a person to give an advice, but probably some ideas about to take this like an opportunity to empower us like citizens of the world, and to give other people the opportunity that we have to have a shelter, to have the possibility to face all these bad situations, smiling and having dream possibilities to improve the situation in the future. And probably that's the idea, to maintain the possibility to dream, to act in faith, to maintain the trust values that they're so important. Values like tolerance, like transparency that we talk, that solidarity, to be honest, not only with the others, but with ourselves, and try to help in the way that we can in our field of work, in our field of where we are living. I think we can do a lot. If anybody do what's right, I think the world has to be better.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for those words, and thank you so much for the honor of this conversation. You have done so much, and thank you for all of your work with the poor, with all your work with the environment, with all your work with education, and thank you for all that you've done to help make life on our planet as beautiful as it looks from space. And I really appreciate this opportunity, and I also appreciate everybody who tuned in and watched, and thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to have been here. A big honor. And you are the part of the small group that made the possibility to dream on other space. And it's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All the best, everyone. Cheers.
Yes.